Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This video is all about fishing line. Basically, fishing line can be broken down into three categories: monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braid. Starting things off, we'll cover monofilament. So monofilament, 9 times out of 10, if you buy a rod and reel combo at Canadian Tire, Walmart, ordered off Amazon, whatever, it's going to come spooled with line, and it's monofilament that is on that rod and reel. We'll start then with monofilament line, and we'll talk about the pros and the cons. So 9 times out of 10, if you get a rod and reel combo online, or you head to Bass Pro or whatever, and you get a combo, it's going to be spooled up with monofilament. If it's not, especially if you go to Bass Pro here in Moncton, they'll put that mono on for you before you walk out of the store. So pro number one, it's cheap. It really is the cheapest line out there. I just ordered a big spool off of Amazon, 1,250 yards for just over $10. So for sure, it's the cheapest stuff out there. Number two, it's pretty abrasive resistant. Okay, so you can bump that along some rocks, along some trees, or what have you, and it'll probably be okay. 3, stretch. Monofilament is pretty forgiving. It'll give you that little bit of stretch that might be required for a beginner angler, for them to give them extra time to set the hook and not bend that hook back. And 4, it floats. So it's good for anything like top water where you need to keep the bait really high. And if you need to get it down there, you just give it a little bit more weight on the other end and it'll get down there. Now for the cons. Really, there's only 2 cons. The stretch, again, because of sensitivity. And why I say that is, if a fish gets on there and it taps on your line, that little bit of stretch may make the difference between you setting the hook or waiting because it wasn't a hard enough hit for you to realize there was a fish on there. And if that happens, there's a good chance that a big bass will spit that out. And second, monofilament has memory. So if you've ever used a monofilament before and you've casted that out there and it comes off in coils, that's what I mean. As it's wrapped around the spool, it'll keep that memory of how it's wrapped around the spool, and sometimes you tend to cast and it comes out in spirals. So the next line we'll talk about is fluorocarbon. Let's talk about the pros and the cons of fluorocarbon. Pro number 1, fluorocarbon has less stretch than monofilament, which makes it more sensitive. Pro number 2, it is abrasion resistant. Pro number 3, this line sinks. So if you're using a deep diving crankbait and you need it to get down, 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 this is the line that you want to tie on. And pro number 4, it's cheaper than braid. It's a little bit more expensive than mono, but it's a lot cheaper than braid. And now the cons. So con number 1 is that it sinks. I know I just said that that was a good thing in the pros, but here's the problem with it sinking. You can't use it for a top water. And of course, con number 2, it's more expensive than mono. And finally, let's talk about braid. Here are the pros for braid. It doesn't have any stretch. So because it doesn't have any stretch, it's very, very sensitive. You'll feel every little bump when you're using braid. Pro number 2, it floats. This allows you to use it for top water. And pro number 3, it's thinner. And when I say it's thinner, I'm talking about the strength of it versus the same strength that you would find in mono. For example, I have this Power Pro right here, and this Power Pro is 20-pound test, but it's in a 5-pound diameter. So what that means is that this line is 20-pound test, but it's the diameter of 5-pound test for mono, which is an excellent addition when you're putting that on your spool. And the last pro for braid is that it's very visible. Braid comes in all kinds of bright colors, and that helps you visually see when a fish has picked up your bait and walked away with it. You may not feel it, but you can see your line go. And now for the cons. So con number 1, braid is expensive. How expensive? You remember back when we were talking about mono and I said I got 1,250 yards for $10? This one right here is 150 yards, and this will cost you about $35. The second con to braid is that it's visible. I know I just said that's a pro, but it's a pro for you. But it's a con when it comes to the fish. Even underwater, this line is very visible, and this is part of the reason why you see a lot of pro fishermen out there put on fluorocarbon leaders on the end of their braid. And the last con for braid is that it's not very abrasion resistant. If you get a little nick in braid, it weakens it and it can pull off at any time. This is another reason why you see the guys put fluorocarbon leaders on there, and it acts just kind of like a hockey stick. You know how when you have a composite hockey stick and you get a little nick in there, your next slap shot, it's gonna break. There you have it. Some very basic knowledge on fishing line, the three main types, what the pros and cons are, and what you can and shouldn't use. See you on the water.